to increase the police budget because you're doing what works. All the things that I talked about, making sure that the 20,000 young people that we have that are at risk have an opportunity that they're at all throughout the day, making sure that we have programs, making sure these buildings are open, making sure we invest in safe spaces. All the things that I'm talking about, reentry programs when folks come home so that we can tackle the recidivism rate. No person coming home shouldn't just be given a $20 and a bus card. They should have temporary housing. They should have a job opportunity we can pair them with. They should all have free counseling. We need to make sure that we put people on the right path and create the opportunity so that they can be productive. If we do that, we will not continue having to increase the police budget. And if there is a time when folks do that, and anywhere in this country, that means that they aren't putting their money where they're supposed to. So, the reality of the situation is that we need, and this is why youth intervention is so important, right? If we have youth interventionists that tackle the problems with young people, if we have social workers that tackle the problems with folks who are mentally ill, we need the experts to tackle the problems. We cannot continue throwing police at the problem because you then have more Tyree Nichols and George Floyds. I'm sick of it. I have worked on this, these social issues for over 10 years, not just leading the Laquan McDonald movement. I led the first week of protests for George Floyd's family in Minnesota. This is what I've been doing, understanding, why the relationship is so corroded and what people want. And what people want right now is not for you to say, hey, I want to train them a different way, or I want to build a police academy, or maybe if we do this. We tried everything.
And right. So what and what you just described is a lot of what's in the consent decree in terms of training, in terms of enhancing the police power. So are you not supportive of? I mean, what would you do with that? It's a court order, so it's not.
I worked on a consent decree. I worked on a consent decree with the attorney Lisa Madigan at the time, and at the end of the day, that the consent decree, we need to make sure that every piece in the consent decree is implemented in a timely fashion. This administration asked for an extension. It shouldn't take another 5 years for us to do it. So we're going to make sure that the consent decree is put in place. We're going to also have other measures to hold officers accountable. We're going to have a zero tolerance policy for officers that are affiliated with hate groups like the Proud Boys. We are going to fine officers who misuse their body camera, any equipment that they have that they're trained to use. We also want, to figure out a way to stop paying these police misconduct settlements. And one of my ideas was that, we make them carry liability insurance. We have to we're spending $1 billion every 10 years on police misconduct. And everything that I'm telling you about, I could have spent $1 billion on all those things, and the crime rate would have been cut in half. So we have to really start to invest where it works and stop wasting billions of dollars on things that aren't working.
Okay. Let's move on to education, another really important topic. This challenges in the schools. One of the big challenges, particularly in the African American community, is dropping enrollment in the schools. Many of our schools are very underutilized. Many of them have been closed. I was talking to a community leader on the West Side a couple of weeks ago who mentioned Manley Career Academy, and he said this is a high school, and he says they only have 77 students at Manley. That's a high school, and some people might think that school should be closed. What is your plan for addressing the underutilization of schools across the city, and how are you going to bring people back to the schools?
Well, let me tell you some of the problems that we have with CPS, right? The funding structure. We are funding schools based off enrollment when they should be funded based off of need. Okay. That's one of the biggest things that we need to go down to the state to say we need to stop it. All right. And we allow, because of that funding structure, we allowed the privatizers to buy up the politicians, build charter schools, and then wave this flag like, hey, this is a better school. And those charter schools are worse than the public schools. But that money that the kid was, we dedicated for that kid, went out of that public school, went to that charter school, and allowed them to waste millions of dollars and do what they want to do and still miseducate our children. The reality of the situation is we got to change the funding structure. We also must make sure that every school in the city of Chicago has a standard, a high quality education. And with the selective enrollment plan that they have in place, that is very discriminatory. You basically have to test to get into a good school. And if you don't test to get into one of these schools, then um, if you're in a poor neighborhood, then your school is poor. And that shouldn't be the case. Every kid in the city of Chicago deserves a quality education. That should be number one priority.
So so you're talking about
So,
going to Springfield and getting more funding.
yeah,
Then how do you?
changing the formula, changing the funding structure.
Mhm.
We also need to get the privatizers out of the schools that are privatized in regards to our food, in regards to cleanliness, that are making millions of dollars, that are only ones benefiting, and our kids are not, right. And we need to make sure that we're creating better union paying jobs that can take care of our children inside of those schools. And then we have to make sure that these schools are quality. And if these schools are quality schools, then people will know whatever neighborhood they go into that their kid will be given a quality education. One of the things that we talked about
What's a
is
quality school?
a
What's a
quality
quality school?
school is a school that there's not 40 kids in a classroom, a school that has a multitude of clinical staff members and professional mental health professionals to tackle what's going on with a lot of our students who are coming from broken homes, going into broken communities, dodging bullets, hopeless, and then some of them are homeless and hungry, and then coming in school and you expect them to learn 2 plus 2. We need to make sure that the wraparound services are in every school. A school that has after school programs, a school that has different career fields, not just saying go to college, but some people are good with their hands. They need a trade. Some people are good with technology, and there are six-figure tech jobs coming out of high school without a degree. We need to make sure there's a pipeline for that, and schools are open throughout the day and on weekends. That's a quality school. And when you look at, I spoke at Walter Payton last week to their kids. When you every neighborhood should have a Walter Payton. And I told them this. Walter Payton has massive program, massive opportunities, lots of private funding as well. Because of their status in the selective enrollment school system, we need every school in the city of Chicago to be like that, and that must change from the enrollment base to needs base, and we can build these institutions all throughout the city and put a moratorium on charter schools and make public school the mecca of schools.
So you want a moratorium on charter schools. Just to hold that thought for a minute, I wanted to let our audience know that we've been having some technical difficulties. So you might have not been able to get the full story here, but I think we fixed everything. So I apologize if you were having trouble with the feed, but we're into it. We've got a great conversation going here. So you want to put a moratorium on charter schools. I assume you're against vouchers. You would not support school vouchers?
No.
You want to put more money into public education. So let me shift to a challenge in terms of education that we've seen over the last 4 years, and that's the relationship between City Hall and the Chicago Teachers Union. It's been very fraught. It's been very difficult. Some people would say it's broken. What would you do is, what's that?
I said it seems like it happens every administration.
Okay, so what's going to make your administration different? How are you going to approach the CTU? What's your relationship like with them, and how are you going to make sure that you work together for the betterment of the schools and for the students?
Well, here's the thing. The thing is our kids are first, right? And we have to make that clear. And the reality of the situation is that we got an elected school board that's coming into play. And I look to definitely have a hand in the elected school board that's coming in and making sure that we got members that really care about our children. And the Chicago Teachers Union, a lot of the things that they've talked about over the past few years, they're not asking for a lot, right? Our teachers need the support that they need, and we need to give it to them. Our students also need that. And what I want to make sure that we're doing is we're working together for the better good of our children, of my children that's in public schools, right? So I have a vested interest because I'm a parent of public school kids. And I want to make sure that every school in this city has what it needs. So I'm going to work with them. We're going to bring them to the negotiation table. We're going to negotiate in good faith, and we're going to figure out, we're going to be partners, right? That's one of the biggest things that's the problem with this administration. everybody's, opponents. CTU is an opponent. Small businesses are opponents. No, we are partners here, and we are trying to change this city together. So we're going to disagree, but we got to understand that everyone can't be right. And we're going to come together and compromise in good faith. And I'm willing to do that with every union in this city.
Now, the teachers union is not supporting you; they're supporting another candidate. So is that so? If you were to become mayor, you're going to maybe not get off on the right foot from the very beginning. How are you going to address that?
Listen, I think they know they've chosen the wrong candidate. But I mean, I think that that's where we are. And, I don't really care who anyone support right now. I believe that the people are going to make the best decision. And I have faith in the voters. And after that, I hope all the politics is done and we'll sit at the table and work together.
So you mentioned that you think it's important that we have the right members of this new elected school board, which, to remind our viewers, it's going to move from an appointed board of 7 people to an elected board of 21. How will you go about making sure this is going to be elected school board? There will be different constituency groups that are going to want to run candidates. How are you going to, as mayor, how are you going to influence that and make sure we get the best elected school board possible?
Well, this is a democracy, so I'm going to play a part, and I'm going to endorse, and I'm going to fund, and do what I've been doing over the years. Every candidate I've ever supported, I've put thousands of dollars into supporting financially and using my platform, and I'll do the same as mayor, and support the candidate that I think is great, and hopefully the people will decide to choose them.
Okay. We have, because this is Block Club, we have a lot of very important community issues that our reporters and our readers wanted to put on the table. And so I have a few questions that I want to share with you from those groups. We have a question from Rage Inglewood. That's a very active, very influential group down in, I'm sure you know Rage is down in Inglewood. The organizers there are asking this question: in Greater Inglewood alone, we have over 600 abandoned and vacant residential and commercial properties. What plan will you implement in the first 180 days to address the hyper vacancies of properties in communities like ours?
Let me just give a big shout out to Rage Inglewood. Aisha Butler was in Rage, one of the first community organizations that I got my start with as a young boy, performing at all their festivals and being a part of their community events as I was a young teenager. They've been going strong and doing some amazing work for many, many years. And I can't wait to work with them. The amount of properties that we have in the city of Chicago that are vacant is utterly disgusting. And one of the things that we must do is we're going to have to amend automatic prerogative. And the mayor claimed that she was going to do so. She fell back. She got scared of the council members. But there needs to be a mechanism in place. This is one of the biggest problems, is that aldermen have control, and a lot of them, sometimes hold on to pieces of property because they're waiting on certain things or certain people or certain donations for some of those who've gotten indicted. We really have to address automatic prerogative and figure out how we can make this process easier. This process needs to be smoother. There are people who are ready to develop. There are organizations who are ready to buy these pieces of property. It should not take a year for us to move one piece of property off of the tax roll to someone else. It makes no sense. So
Rage is asking, what will you do in 180 days to
I just said it.
Make a difference?
We're going to amend automatic prerogative and put a measure in place where the mayor can step in and move forward projects. We are also, going to work with the county to move forward some tax breaks for those folks who will develop properties that are city owned. So we're talking about a 10-year tax break for anyone who one of these pieces of property that we own and develop them within a year. We need to build on these pieces of property, and it needs to happen in a mass way. Another thing we're going to do is we are going to lobby for a public bank. This is one of our key issues, where we have an economic engine that can invest into these organizations and people in these neighborhoods. And all of the profit that comes back from the public bank, we'll back home loans, we'll back small business loans, we'll also, build income-based housing development. All that profit that comes back, it don't go into private prisons like the larger banks. It goes back to city services, right? And it goes to our underfunded schools or paying down our pension crisis. We need our own economic engine in the city. And one of the things I'm going to fight for in my first 100 days is getting the state and the city to allow us to have a bank charter in the city of Chicago so we can invest in residents.
And tell us a little bit more. What is a public bank, and are there other examples that have worked in other cities?
Yep. Bank of North Dakota has one. It's called Bank of North Dakota, and they've been wildly successful since it started. And they're smaller when it comes to when we look at the population sizes, and they were able to get $1 billion in profit over 10 years. And so it's a bank, right? We're using taxpayer dollars. I would start the bank with $500 million, and we will be investing into mortgages, small business owners who are opening up small businesses, and the financing wouldn't be the same as a bank. And we would also fund income-based housing development, and all of the profit that comes back, we will have a way to, we will have different ways to move that funding to other places based on the board. So we're gonna have a 9-member board, 3 elected, 3 appointed by the mayor, and 3 appointed by city council, so that we have a democracy. And they would have the priority of where the money goes, and when that money comes back, decide where it's gonna go from there.
And back for a minute to aldermanic prerogative, you said that's one of your goals is to end that. The current mayor has tried to do that. In fact, that was one of the things she declared on day one that she was going to do. And look where we are. So how are you going to be different? What's going to make the difference with you?
Well, I want a more collaborative process. I'm not going to come in and say, city council, you're nothing. I'm just going to take away your power. I'm not trying to take away all of their power. I still think that they need to be in control of, the stuff in their ward. But in regards to the projects, in regards to like zoning and permits, we're going to have to come to an agreement on what that looks like. Does that look like the community being able to petition with a certain number of signatures for the mayor's office to be able to step in and have executive powers and move forward a project? What does that look like? And I'm willing to bring city council to the table to figure it out, but it's going to have to be figured out fast, because we have too much property in this city that's sitting vacant, and I need it moved, and I need it moved quick. So we're going to put a measure in place where we can have a compromise in regards to zoning and permitting as well. And once we have that compromise, we're going to move it forward.
Okay. We have a few more questions from Block Club. Things that the Block Club have been reporting on, and our readers are very interested in. South and West Side neighbors have told Block Club that they have been repeatedly shut out of decision-making on Invest Southwest projects. That's the mayor's signature project. Despite the city promising them unprecedented levels of community engagement. How would you work to ensure that these projects are ones that the neighbors want and that will most benefit the communities?
The mayor's Invest Southwest program is just all political, and it's really terrible how they've unrolled the Invest Southwest and how they've lied to people, how they lied to the public, how they got up there saying, "Oh, we've invested $1.8 billion," and all the people in the community started looking around to figure out where their money went, because it never came, right? And a lot of these projects are projects that were started by Rahm Emanuel, or projects that have never been, that still hasn't broken ground. And so, I think it sucks that we have a mayor that they'll be willing to play politics and lie in people's faces. Now, in regards to the projects and making sure that community members have a voice, I believe in that, right? I believe in a model where the people have a say in their communities, and that's how it should be. And what we're going to do, one of the first things that I want to do in my first 100 days is start to convene neighborhoods throughout the city, every neighborhood, to start to put together a quality of life plan. What does that quality of life plan includes, right? We know we need good paying jobs. We know we need a grocery store. We know we need housing, affordable housing units, home ownership, all these different things. Let's build that quality of life plan for your neighborhood, and then bring all of those departments together to talk about how we're going to achieve these goals, short and long-term goals, and pull the financing in for it. And that's how we're going to rebuild community. So one of the first things I'm doing, bring community members to the table early and start to build those.
So would you dump Invest Southwest and start
There is
anew?
no Invest Southwest. It's just a name.
Well, the mayor might disagree with you. And there's been some reporting. You're right. There's been some reporting that showed that some of these projects were already underway, and some of them haven't gotten off the ground, but some of them are real. So are you? I mean, are you going to?
I mean, I don't
dump all that?
even know if there's 5 or 10 projects that were actually under Invest Southwest. So I mean,
So you're going to start. You're going to start with this overview, this community development.
We're going to start with our own signature plan that's transparent, that's community driven, that is backed up with real data, and not a plan that's just for politics and just to say I'm investing when I'm really not.
Okay. We have a question about transportation. There have been a series of tragic incidents in recent years that have involved bicyclists, with cars blocking bike lanes and hitting cyclists in the roadway. Block Club has done a lot of reporting on this. Do you have plans for improving bicycle safety infrastructure if elected? What specifically would you like to do to make the roadways safer for bicyclists?
Well, we definitely need to audit our infrastructure. I mean, the infrastructure right now is insane. When you look at how they construct bike lanes on streets, I've seen streets where you have cars on this one lane, then you have a bike lane, then you have parked cars next on the other side of bike lanes. It's like that don't make sense, right? We got to audit our infrastructure. I think that I support. There's a group, Bike Grid Now, that wants to create a bike grid for the city of Chicago. I support that and bringing them to the table so that we can really figure out the best way that we can make the city more walkable, bikeable, and drivable, especially when you talk about bus lanes and signals and things of that sort, speed limits. We need to look at our city infrastructure as a whole. And then even on the bike lanes, where do we put the bike lanes? Do we want to put them share it with the sidewalk so that we have trees and things of that sort that are blocking them from the cars? I mean, it's very dangerous. And I tell you, a lot of Black people on the South and West sides, we don't use them because they're dangerous. So we need to audit that infrastructure for sure and really figure out the best place to put the bike lane, making sure that it's still walkable for pedestrians, and making sure the buses have their lanes and their right of way so that they can get passengers to and from. We need to look at the whole city's infrastructure for sure.
How do you get around the city? What's your typical mode of transportation?
Well, vehicle, right? I am, but I've been electric vehicle owner for several years because I really do care about the environment, as well as I've been on public transportation. I've spent my time on public transportation growing up, going to school an hour, 2 hours away, back and forth for many years, and I've not seen it as bad as it is on public transportation. Rather,
you mean the CTA specifically?
CTA, yeah, bad as it is now. We need a model transportation agency. We got to tackle that problem to make it safe, clean, fast, and eventually free. Right? Transportation is a right, and everyone should be able to access it at a certain point. We got to tackle a lot of the problems, the safety problems. It's a mobile homeless shelter. So I would declare a state of emergency for public transportation to free up funds so that we can evaluate people and partner them with services and get them off of the trains and really create a modern transportation system where more people want to get on public transit, more people, we audit the bike lanes and put them in the right places, more people want a bicycle, more people, it'll become walkable, and it'll be better for our buses. So I want to audit the infrastructure and take public transportation seriously. And that's one of the things we're going to do. One of our priorities in our first 100 days is to change the leadership of CTA, and also do a full audit on the infrastructure so that we can have a good plan.
Okay. So you've talked a lot about your personal background and both the highs and lows in terms of struggling in the community, but then also being successful in real estate and other areas. But you're young, you're proud of being young, and as you should be. So you don't necessarily have the depth of experience, particularly management experience, that some of your opponents have. So what would you say to folks that say that you're maybe that Jamal Green is a little too green? And how do you address the natural concern that You're going to be managing a $16.4 billion city budget. How would you approach management? Who are the people that you would surround yourself with to advise you on some of these important issues like infrastructure, transportation, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, let me just say a few things. As in regards to everybody in the race, I wouldn't say that anybody has more management experience than me in this race. They have been in an elected position where they probably haven't accomplished a lot of things. And if you look at my record of what I've accomplished as an organizer and a business owner, I'm willing to put that record up against all of their political records put together.
But you manage, whatever you've done. It's been smaller organizations. We're not talking
I
about
would argue
organizations that have billions of dollars.
I would argue that every mayor in the city of Chicago has never managed a large city before they were mayor, including this mayor, including Rahm Emanuel, including Harold Washington, Mayor Daley. We can go on down the line.
Okay, fair enough.
They have never managed a large city before they were mayor. Secondly, it's all about having the best team, right? I can't do this alone. My agenda is what the people are voting for. And with this agenda, I will ensure that in all of these different areas. I work with experts in all these different fields. I'm going to have the best folks when it comes to development, when it comes to our environment, when it comes to our schools, when it comes.
Can you name some of the people that are advising you? I'm not saying who you're going to hire, but people who are advising you now, names we would know, experienced people that you can.
Well, I wouldn't want to put people names on the record. Obviously, if you look at my plans, you would know that I have some advisement.
Give me types. Give me types of people.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to the development world, folks know I'm very close to David Doig, who's done a lot of great things in Pullman, right? And I work close with him and all of the projects that they've developed over the years, and really looking at what they've done in regards to their quality of life plan in Pullman, and seeing how they were able to bring jobs, youth center, housing, right? Affordable housing, affordable home ownership to the neighborhood. And I've worked closely there with them. I work closely with folks in the education field, and I have plenty of folks who are close to me there. One of the people who gave me my first start is the superintendent of Evanston Schools, and he's Dr. Devon Horton, who's very close to me as well. So I got really folks who are very good at what they do in every field, from development to education to environment to public transit. So we'll be ready on day one, 100%.
Okay. I have a question from a Block Club reader, Katie Fight. She wants to know, how will you address the quality and inequities of programming in the Chicago park system? How will you leverage the park system to engage more kids and be genuine resources for the communities where they're located?
Yeah, our parks for many years have not been, I was one who went to park districts when I was a young boy. And right now, it seems there's a large disconnect from the park districts to our communities. And we got to change that. Our park districts must be connected to our schools and communities, so that folks actually know that there are safe spaces where they can go and program. And we got to program it and really invest in these park districts. We have to do the outreach and marketing. We have to build the relationships with the families. And that's why I think there needs to be a great connection to those park district employees, to our Chicago public school employees in the area. We have to bring it all together, because these are buildings that we're spending millions of dollars on that are being underutilized, that can be safe spaces for young people. And that's going to be a huge priority of ours. And we got to really look at the leadership and look at the board and really start to get people. One of the things that is a problem of mine is a lot of these folks in these positions are there because of politics or been there too long. We need people who understand the times in a lot of these positions and sitting on these boards, who's going to step up and really make sure that they're being innovative and with the times on how we connect to people. And that's one of the things that we're definitely going to do, is we're going to change the leadership to, we need freshness. A lot of folks.
Sounds like you're probably going to change the police chief. You're going to change the park district head. You're going to maybe change the head of the CTA. You're going to clean house. and bring in all new
Well,
leaders.
I mean, if you can tell me one of the departments is really doing well, I'll keep them. But the reality is, it's none of them. We really need a whole shift in how the city is working because the city isn't working right now. It's not working. Going to the communities and ask people isn't working. And let me say this. I know the last question you was talking about my youth, right? Um, you know, every leader of every large movement, since even the founding fathers of this country, right? If you even wanted to mention them, every leader was my age or around my age, of every spark of every new movement and new innovation. And at the end of the day, that's what this city needs. This city needs freshness and someone who's going to look at things differently, someone who's not tainted by old politics and old baggage, who's going to really serve with integrity and care about all people and base every policy decision on how it's going to affect the next generation of young people, and somebody who's not trying to hog this position. I'm not going to be here more than 2 terms. I don't believe in being a career politician sitting in a seat for many years, and I challenge all the rest of my colleagues to make that same commitment. We need somebody who's fresh, and the reality is, yes, there's some ageism because if I was 10 years older, I would probably get 51% in February 28th because my platform, my
So you
platform,
think your age is going to work against you? And
a little bit, right? I think
Mhm.
a little bit because I think I would get 51%. Now I think I'm going to make the runoff for
Yeah.
sure, but if I was 10 years older, I probably would win this outright, right? Because people look at me and look at my age and then count me out. But if you actually looked at my platform and my track record and all the things that I've done, push that experience against them. Getting the largest bank in the world to get back $1 billion to Southwest and West Sides, get putting businesses open up businesses back open when they were looted with $250,000 after this mayor raised bridges, mentoring young people. I can go down the line of my accomplishments and how it's changed people's lives all across this city in every neighborhood. And if I was 10 years older, people would understand. Some of the folks who look at my age would understand that I'm the best person. And I challenge people to move the age to the side and look at my whole body of work. And it's incomparable with all the rest of these people in this race.
And one of the things that you've discussed is you're going to do is you're going to try to corner the market on the youth vote
Yeah.
because you see that as being a big part of your base. Talk a little bit about what your strategy is to accomplish that, and how will that help you at least get yourself into the runoff.
Well, I think young people are finally ready to decide, elections as they have. We saved the Democrats this last midterm. It was
In
those
terms
voices.
of what do you mean by you save the Democrats?
This last midterm in regards to the national election and Congress, we saved them. Without the young people voting, the Republicans would have had a bigger edge. And so they thanked young people then. But the thing about it is you got to stop trying to scare young people into voting and actually go and talk to young people and tell them why they should be voting. And so this is an opportunity that we're using. We're on college campuses. We're going to college campuses all throughout the city. We are using fun ways to actually reach young people. We had a music video that released that got tens of thousands of views with young people. We're using TikTok and different strategies as well as celebrity influencers. And we're pushing young people to vote from the crib. So they can go to votefromthecrib.com and sign up to vote from the crib. And we're going to make sure that they complete their mail-in ballot. 143,000 young people voted in the city of Chicago this past November. And if you look at the numbers, 100,000 votes will get me into the runoff. And so I think that young people are going to make a decision here, and you can't poll them because they're not traditional voters. So they're going to be the shocking vote here. The non-voters who usually don't vote in the neighborhoods, who felt left behind, this is 70% of people who usually don't vote. And there's going to be a lot of them who vote this time because they finally have someone that they know have done the work and have changed their lives, and they're going to make their voices heard. So, it's going to be fun to shock the city and shock the world. And I love being the underdog.
So you're going to shock people, and as you say, many young voters are not being picked up in these polls. If you believe the last few polls that have come out publicly,
I don't.
you're polling down you're not, your numbers are not going to get you into the runoff. But you
Right.
said those polls are not accurate and don't reflect
No.
the real state of the race. And why is that?
Not at all. I mean, the polls, first of all, you can't poll a majority undecided electorate. The majority of people are undecided right now, so you can't poll them. And number two, how do you poll people who usually don't vote, right? You're trying to poll a sample of the 29% of people who usually vote. That doesn't tell the whole picture. And if you look 4 years ago, no one thought that Lori Lightfoot was even in the top three. So the reality of the situation is that we have to stop this over reliance on these bogus polls and actually go talk to the people in the neighborhoods and get them to understand or understand who they're going to vote for, instead of trying to take your little 300 people sample. Let's stop trying to change the perspective of elections and actually run elections with integrity.
And in addition to your outreach to younger voters, you were telling me earlier you're going to get up on the air because polls are not as important for people to know who you are and that you're out there. So you're going to be running television ads in the next few days.
Yes, we're going on TV soon. All right, you got the exclusive.
And how much of a buyer are you going to do initially?
We're not. I can't say yet. But I will say that a donor has been generous and supporting us, and we're going to do a lot of digital though. I will say the majority of our resources will be digital and field. We have a large field team on every side of town with 3 offices right now, and we're going to do some TV. And so we will be on the air this week with tens of thousands of plays, and we're ready to, finish out strong.
You got any high-profile endorsements coming up? You're not going to get Bernie Sanders this time. It sounds like, right?
I think Bernie's gonna stay neutral, but we've had some amazing endorsements thus far. Nina Turner, who's his chair of his campaign, comedian Mike Epps came out for us big. Even actress Susan Sarandon came out with a big endorsement as well. We've gotten a lot of fun folks to jump in, and we're going to have some more endorsements coming up over the next few weeks. But most importantly, the endorsement of the people of Chicago. Endorsements don't mean much. It's about who people feel can get the job done and change their kids' life, right, and the next generation, and make policy decisions that really can benefit them in their neighborhoods.
Okay, I have just a couple more questions I want to get in. One more question from a Block Club reader. And this question comes from Melissa McNeil. How will you address inequities in the property tax system? The system is overseen by the Cook County Assessor's Office. How will you protect longtime residents and seniors from losing their homes because of delinquent taxes?
So there's a few things we're going to do. We released a Shy Forever plan that attacks property taxes. One of the things that we're going to do that the city has never done is the city has not brought forth its own data valuations of properties and took it to the board of review. And that needs to happen. The city needs to step in and say, look, here's our data, and this is how these properties need to be valued and assessed. And so that's one of the things that we're going to do. Another thing to help folks save their homes is we're going to give interest-free loans to those folks who are behind and at risk of losing their homes due to taxes. And we're going to give 2-year interest-free loans. We're also going to implement a city loyalty tax credit. And this is for folks who stay in their home past 3 years. They get 2% off of their taxes every year. So if you stay in your home 20 years, you get 40% off of your property taxes, because we want folks to know that we appreciate them for continuing to stay here and be a resident of Chicago. We have to stop our over-reliance on property taxes. We also have to get rid of the property tax escalator that's tying property taxes to inflation. And we have to create a new tax base, which is why I talk a lot about using single-family mortgage bond to back home loans, right? We need tens of thousands of people to come back to the city of Chicago, and we need to give them the down payment and closing costs and the loans so that they can come back and own a home, because they're going to be property taxpayers and going to pour money back into our economy. We have to create a new tax base. If we don't create a new tax base with new homeowners, with new small businesses, and make it easier to open up a small business and get them to open, with bringing a new tax base down to the Magnificent Mile. We're the only candidate to campaign to talk about how we're going to revitalize the Magnificent Mile and make it more of an experience, a strip of experiences where people want to come to the Mag Mile. That is my plan, not to continue to raise property taxes because we're basing it off of regressive taxes and regressive revenues like red light cameras and and booting vehicles. One of the things that I'm gonna do my first day is sign an executive order to end the banning of booting vehicles and seizing vehicles for unpaid parking tickets. This is a terrible practice, and we're going to end it in the city of Chicago. We're going to end the doubling and tripling of tickets and allow people to pay their tickets, half of their tickets they pay it within 10 days. We're going to change that whole system and start to invest in what will work long term, and that's investing in people, investing in communities, and bringing people back.
So you don't plan to raise taxes or user fees of any kind, service fees of any kind?
No.
For the full 4 years you're a mayor?
For the full 8 years I'm mayor.
Well, let's start with the 4. If you were to be able to accomplish that in this economy, that would be an amazing feat. I'll take that. Okay,
yes.
So
yes.
So Block Club has a final question that we have to ask, and it's winter, and in winter we usually get a lot of snow. We've been kind of lucky this year so far, but we both know that luck is probably not going to last. It's only just the end of January. So when snow hits our city, Chicagoans engage in a time-honored practice, and you know what it is. It's taking and saving parking spots, and we call that dibs. So the question is, are you pro-dibs or anti-dibs?
Man, my team tested me on this question because they thought it was going to come in a TV debate. And they was like, what's your answer? And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? My mom would have a real problem with somebody if they move those chairs. She would have a real problem. And, that's
she's a dibs lady, huh?
She is a dibs lady. That's how I was raised. Go out, J-Mal, go out there. Go shovel that parking spot and put this in the middle of it. I was raised that way. So, I would have a real problem with my mom if I was not pro dibs. But, that's all I can say.
Well, you don't want a problem with mom. Mom rules, right?
I have a real problem. But I will say, let me say, we do need a municipal plowing, a snow removal program in the city of Chicago, especially for our seniors. We got to make sure that we're plowing sidewalks and side streets and alleys. We got to do our part. And that's one of the things that we're going to invest in on the city level.
This has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much, J-Mal Green, for spending time with us at Block Club. Thanks for joining us for the Ballot, which is Block Club's live show on the 2023 Chicago mayoral race. We've got more to come. Next up, later this week, is State Representative Cam Buckner. Check out our website for all the details of the schedule. You don't want to miss one of them. This was a great conversation. Thank you, J-Mal Green, and thanks to the audience for watching.
I really appreciate you for having me and Block Club for having this. And if anybody want to go and check out more of our plan, they can go to gogreenchicago.com. And I hope that we can get your vote this February, as well as you too, Ms. Washington. I need your vote too.
I'm listening. Thanks again. Good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Have a great one.